Carolyn, what are some of the challenges facing wealthy families in Malaysia?
I think it's knowing who to go to and what kind of products to ask for. I think it's still at a very infancy, definitely. Everyone's saying that, but it's factual. The families know it in a very basic level that they know they need to plan and they want to plan. But how they go about it, they don't really know. The first kind of like step they should normally take would be, I suppose, to link up with somebody, and usually a professional that knows that. It could come from different areas, I suppose. It could start with financial planners sometimes. Some of them could go directly to a lawyer. But I think to be very clear about it, and if any professional says that they can cover every aspect of wealth management, then that's not true in my personal take.
And can you expand on some specific examples?
You got to understand that in the Asian, if I were to focus on Chinese families, there's an issue of language barriers as well. We're looking at first generation. Some of them were never educated, so they can't even speak English. So they even have to look for professionals that can communicate with them. Now that's a challenge. And for the professional to actually understand what they want, because they can't verbalize exactly what they want. And again, it goes back to what a lot of them have been saying. All this planning is done at a very later stage in life. So coherency is the other thing. Another challenge that I noticed would be, and this gets a little bit dubious for the professional, say a lawyer like myself, you're not quite sure whether it's the first generation's idea of structuring in a particular way. Sometimes you find that it's usually the second generation, the son, the chosen son that accompanies the dad along to the office. And you wonder to yourself as a professional, and you kind of like have to pick and choose the bits, and you look at them and inquire, is this ideas of structuring emanating from dear son or daddy dearest? So you got to kind of dissect whether the instructions are clear.
Ultimately, how would you see the infrastructure of wealthy clients developing in Malaysia in the future?
It's not really quite there yet on the map for having the branding, having that pool of professionals that have been established enough in this field that can provide that information. I must say that there is a sense, the more affluent families, and in this case all the ultra high net worth, when the first gen even purports to want to structure and plan, the ideas, like I mentioned before in my last answer, a lot of suggestions come from the second generation. And these are people who have been exposed to businesses, say elsewhere, nearest country, I would say Singapore. And they're always saying that's where the people are that can help us. Malaysia, I don't know, maybe again the branding's not loud enough and everything. But I do notice with the Asian families, keeping things onshore, we're not talking about a fiduciary scenario, they like land banking their own country. That's what I do notice. They still, keep their monies here in land and all. But when you're talking about planning for succession planning, then there is, I don't know, it's not a stigma, but it's idea that if they want to go offshore, they got to go further. There is that concept in some of their minds. Because what's the point of going offshore if you don't go further away?
And how can institutions create the right culture and commitment to service families best?
From my perspective, I think what is creating the right culture? For me, that's creating from the onset an honest and open platform which the client and the service provider can work on. Obviously, to encourage the client to be honest and open, there's an expectation from the client families back on the service provider, which includes the legal practitioner, to be honest and open back. And I think that is where it stems and makes the mark of a true advisor on that note. I believe these clients are not looking for a yes man, yes lady. Let's be clear, these people are rather sophisticated. They didn't get to their high net worth status without their necessary smarts. So I think they can differentiate a mere product pusher from a true advisor from a mile away.
And is there anything you'd like to add?
I think it's very important that the advisor and the service provider hits that honest mark with the client and be clear that you are there to give them true opinions, and sometimes they don't like it. There are clients that will appreciate and the clients that won't appreciate. The clients that will appreciate it will go on to realize and hopefully appreciate the fact that these are the form and type of advisors that are genuinely committed to give true advice. As for service providers that are more institutional, I suppose as an external legal practitioner acting for the client, what I notice is that the service providers of institutions, they are more fixated on the vehicle, the products, rather than the driver, the client. And I think it's important that there is a refocus back on the client. And it's amazing if you can get the client to realize that you are interested in them, you're interested in their concerns and their issues. It's amazing how much more they will open up, and that's when you can be able to start having an ability to have true and accurate structuring.